Welcome back to the Center in the City podcast. I'm your host, Wade Brill, and I am so glad you are here. Today, we're going to explore the gift and practice of authenticity, what it means, why we want it, and how it's so essential for our well being. I specifically wanted to talk about this theme of authenticity at the end of the year and give you some space to reflect so that as you think about the new year and even set your new year intentions, you get to be more clear about what authenticity means and feels like and looks like and smells like and tastes like for yourself. So, whether you're taking this podcast on a walk, listening while you're cooking, or just chilling out in your home or in the car, let's settle in and let's get centered. So, what does authenticity actually mean? According to Cambridge Dictionary, authenticity is the quality of being real or true. And when I personally think about authenticity, how I would define it, authenticity is really about knowing oneself. It's about being so honest and true with who you are, what feels important, like knowing yourself on this deep cellular level, what your needs are, and being able to express them and live them in alignment. I kind of like to think of that sassy phrase people say, well, does the carpet match the drapes? When they're referring to, does your pubic hair match the head on your hair? And I think about that with authenticity. Like, does your inner world match your outer world? Is there alignment in them? And obviously, there's a lot of factors we can't control in some of our external world and or our internal world. But when we really think about that authentic expression, where it comes from, what our truth is, are we expressing it and living it on the outside? Are the things that we're thinking and feeling internally, the things that we're sharing out loud, the things that we're doing, the ways that we're being, the actions that we're taking? And in Buddhism, there's this teaching around what's called the right view, which you can think of is, are we looking at life through this clear lens? Are we looking at life without clinging to the stories in our mind, to clinging to delusional thoughts and misconceptions? So when one is expressing themselves authentically, it's really about them living in alignment with their truth, expressing themselves genuinely without pretending or conforming to external expectations. And I think so many of us, myself included, are craving to live in alignment to our true selves, to live authentically. Authenticity is one of my core values. And so it's a deeply meaningful practice to live and be authentic. And when I recognize I'm not authentic, when I haven't shared my truth or lived my truth for whatever the reasons are, from past hurt, from fear, from anxiety, from the stories in my mind, it's a big wake up call. It's an opportunity to get realigned, to learn something about myself, because I know how good it feels when I live authentically. And in today's world, we're living in a world where we're tied to social media all of the time or bombarded with so much media or whispers in our ears, whether it be podcasts just like this one, or friends, or Slack messages, the pings and dings of our phones, a notification of news, and what these influencers are doing or what these celebrities are doing. And it just can bombard our sense of authenticity, especially if you are somebody who knows or maybe are learning that based on how you were raised, your conditioning, or a whole bunch of different inputs, that you have lived trying to meet other people's expectations versus living for your own life. And I don't know about you, but I've seen this phenomenon where when I teach a public Pilates class, I'll see a lot of women come in with the same kind of look. And believe me, I have been one of those chicas with matching outfits, right? The top and the bottom match, socks, and have their hair done in some way, maybe have some makeup on. There's a certain like look to what a fit girl, quote unquote, looks like. And it's like, are we being authentic in these moments? Or are we trying to embody an image to meet this external expectation that is around us? For me personally, I sometimes get really triggered because when I'm sharing on social media and I'm trying to be authentic and live my value of authenticity, I sometimes feel like I get this feedback loop when my reels or my stories don't get as much exposure. The story that's in my mind is, oh, it's because I'm not wearing makeup right now, or because my lighting isn't perfect, or because I'm not following the algorithm desires. And it really can mess with my sense of self if I am not careful. Because this feedback loop is telling me you need to perform and do these things in a certain way, and then we'll reward the way you edit, the way you look, the way you sound in your reels to get you more exposure. So then my brain is like, oh, it wants this dopamine of if I do it this way, I then get rewarded. And if I'm doing it this way, that might not necessarily be in alignment with the way I want to be doing it. So, what does that then look like to express myself authentically and try to follow the formula that's out there for quote unquote success and growth? It's a mind fuck, let me just tell you. And it's a practice for me to come back to myself again and again. Sometimes I'll film something and I'm like, oh, that did not feel authentic. And I'll pause and I'll feel that in my body. I'll maybe feel like a tightening in my stomach or a little bit of like, ugh, like, was that not what I really wanted to express? And I need to check in with myself on that. And if that it was out of alignment, how can I course correct? Or do I just let it go and let it be feed forward for the next thing I do? But paying attention to authenticity and that inner alignment is key. So even if I might not getting the results that I want, I'm trying to put my focus on dropping perfectionism and instead really choosing expressing myself honestly and aligned to what matters most to me. Being authentic can be really vulnerable. I remember a few years ago, definitely during the pandemic, where I shared something very emotional on a story of mine on Instagram. I think it was something around expectations around celebrating Thanksgiving over the holidays or something during the pandemic. And I believe I was crying or showing deep emotions. And what I said to myself afterwards, there was a little bit of a vulnerability hangover like, ooh, was that too much? But then some of the feedback I got was, thank you so much for being real. Thank you so much for sharing your truth in this moment. And that was very supportive feedback because it helped me realize one of my missions in life is to help people deeply listen to themselves. Because when we listen to ourselves, when we know ourselves, when we can know our bodies, we can know our emotions, know our thoughts. That gives us information to then make more intentional choices in our life. And living life intentionally is, in my perspective, what life is all about. Our time here is so precious. And so, how do we want to be breathing, living, contributing, sleeping, eating, nourishing ourselves, giving in this time that we're here? So, being authentic isn't just also a nice to have, even if it's not one of your core values, but there's a lot of benefits to our well being when we can express ourselves and be ourselves authentically. So, for instance, if we are not being authentic, we're typically expressing or hiding who we are, and that can create a lot of internal tension and stress. And we know that stress is the root cause of all of our illnesses in this world because of the inflammation that gets triggered in our cellular levels. So, when we can express ourselves authentically and be ourselves from this place of ease and peace, we're reducing that stress. We're reducing that internal rub and conflict that can be created when the internal landscape and external landscape don't match. When we're being authentic with ourselves, with others, we're also able to express our emotions more openly and honestly. And that's not only important for our own emotional health, but it also is really important for relationship building, for creating trust, creating honesty within relationships. And we know that we need each other as social beings. So, establishing that sense of psychological safety and trust in relationships is essential for our well being as individuals and as a collective. If we're not being authentic, it can also create a lot of anxiety or can be really draining and even lead to burnout because there's this idea that we're living based off of societal or other people's expectations, and we're running on this hedonic treadmill, never reaching the goals or never reaching the needs because we're listening to somebody else's and we're living off of that pressure. So there's not this place of rest because it always feels like we're on edge or we're needing to do more. So when we can tap into our authenticity, it can support us from an internal perspective, coming back to a grounded state of what's realistic and supporting more ease from the inside out, allowing ourselves when we're authentic to live and breathe from being in our own skin, right? To own it and that sense of confidence, like, oh, yeah, I am living the life that I want. And when we can own this confidence, it is not about being arrogant, but it's about like, yeah, this is who I am. All the pleasant and unpleasant things, this is who I am. And when we can own that, there's no searching also for external validation, or maybe not as much. And instead, we're really feeling grounded and okay because we're living from our truth, from that alignment that really, when we can touch that and live into that, oof, it is an amazing feeling that for me personally, it makes me feel like a superhero. I feel like I have so much energy and yet things feel like they're in flow. I'm not like putting my foot on the gas pedal, needing to push really hard in life. I feel easeful. I feel creative. It's just a really beautiful feeling when that alignment is there. Another benefit of living in alignment is, and this is all, based and rooted in science, is that when we are living in alignment with ourselves, we're typically also connected to a sense of purpose. And we know purpose is an essential pillar of well being, having that sense of contribution of how am I contributing to the greater world. that gives us that sense of meaning that we need as humans in life. And so when we can live authentically, it often supports us living in alignment with that sense of meaning and purpose. And so if we're doing all of these things to reduce this tension and stress and disconnection that can happen when we're not being authentic, we are reducing inflammation in our bodies. And instead, we're allowing natural health and natural well being. Being authentic is a feeling that allows us to feel like we're home. And hopefully, home feels like a safe and nurturing place that we can grow and thrive in. So I welcome you in this moment, wherever you are, to pause and think about a few kind of reflection prompts to stimulate introspection. And you can, of course, take these prompts with you to your journal. You maybe want to take them on a walk with you or sit down in a meditation practice. And I welcome you to think back. Could be to earlier today, could be this last year, could be a different moment in time. But I welcome you to think about, when do you feel the most aligned with your true self? As you reflect on the past, when have you felt the most aligned with your true self? And notice what image comes to mind: the environment, the people you're around, what you're doing, how it feels. When do you feel the most aligned with your true self? So for me, when I reflect on this prompt, when I feel the most aligned to my true self, it's kind of a twofold answer that comes up, where when I'm acting from love, when I'm acting and living from a grounded place where there's this trust and stillness and playful effervescence. And I see myself one-on-one having these really in-depth, heartfelt, vulnerable connections with people. And I'm typically in a space of energy, whether that's like a coffee shop or a city, and the feeling of both cozy and sophisticated and elegant are present. So I'm like dressed well, I'm curious, I'm deeply listening. There's a sense of presence, like this is all that I need to be doing and want to be doing in this moment. So I welcome you to notice what comes up for you. And this next prompt that I feel like is really timely, and one of the reasons I wanted to have this podcast conversation around the end of the year, as well as in the midst of the holidays, I welcome you to think about what situations or people make it harder to stay authentic. What situations or people make it harder to stay authentic? I've been personally really thinking about environment, our space, and how not only our home, but more so the city, the place where we choose to live and grow, how that really can enhance our authenticity or detract from it. And how being connected to certain places can really help enliven your spirits, help enliven your authentic values and ways of expression, and they can also diminish it. So being curious about the situations, the people, I'll even add the places that make it harder to stay authentic. What comes up for you? And again, one of the reasons I wanted to share this prompt, especially now, is even as you step in the holidays, notice, are you around family where it feels hard to be authentic because of all the expectations you grew up with, or the fear of being truly accepted as you are, or their different value sets and how you might like to communicate or express yourself might not be in alignment with how they communicate or express themselves. And so just noticing that clash of people, places, environment, situations that affect how you can express your authenticity. Now, one of the lines that I want to emphasize that can be really difficult to notice, or it can just be a line that you miss. I know I can miss it a lot, but that differentiation, that discernment between being authentic, expressing yourself fully and truly, to also to a place of maybe sharing too much or being too honest, that can then not be helpful. So there's always these shadow sides to our values and ways of expressing ourselves. And, that question of like, can you ever be truly too authentic? I don't know. Actually don't think so. However, sadly, we're in cultures where there's expectations where we have to kind of meet some of the social norms that are around us to a certain extent, from a place of safety or collaboration or getting along. So, for instance, in your work environment, you might have to be kind of showing up in a way that doesn't fully allow you to feel authentic. And that sucks. Like my heart breaks for that, especially when you and one typically spends a majority of their life working. So, of course, I want your heart to be in a place where you can feel safe enough to express yourself authentically. And there's discernment that gets to be present there of how can you show up in a work environment and feel like you can be your most authentic self while also demonstrating some professionalism. Some ways of showing up authentically at work could look like practicing honest communication. And again, discerning how honest can you be, but to the best of your ability that maintains this professionalism where you get to share your thoughts, you get to speak up and share your ideas in your meetings, you get to give feedback, you get to have these hopefully honest one on one conversations with your managers. You get to acknowledge when you don't have the answers and need some help. You get to express concerns when they need to be expressed. Being able to maintain integrity, I think, is a really important shade of authenticity, right? Where you're staying in alignment with what you ethically think is responsible. So you're not compromising your integrity. You're staying in alignment with what you say matters most. So if there's a project that you don't feel like aligns, can you speak up about that to the best of your ability? Can you advocate for yourself? Being authentic at work and in your personal life also gets to look like setting boundaries, being able to recognize when you're at capacity with certain things or when you need certain things, or setting those time boundaries that are especially important with work that support you maintaining other aspects of your life that feel important to you, that feel authentic to you to be living and prioritizing. Expressing yourself authentically is not a destination. It is a daily and moment to moment practice. One of the most powerful things that we can do to express our authenticity is maybe even just pausing to slow down and say, what's my truth in this moment? Am I truly communicating my needs, my wants, my thoughts, my beliefs to these people, to the world, to myself? And getting curious when you listen. Like, what is my truth in this moment? And once you listen, then can you honor it? And notice when you can listen and then honor it, meaning live it, integrate it. How does that feel? What might shift for you? And if you can practice that in these little micro moments, from even asking yourself something simple like, what's my truth in this moment about what I want for breakfast? Right? It snaps us out of this autopilot or what I should be eating. And you get to tune into your truth. Maybe your truth is, I want spaghetti. I want leftover spaghetti. And you honor that truth and you eat that spaghetti and you tune in and you notice how does that feel to say like, fuck yeah, to yourself, to honor that, to take that action. And then what starts to happen if you do that in many more micro moments throughout the day? Does that start to shift your life? Does that support you taking the action you've always wanted to? Does that enhance your relationships? Do you notice you sleep better at night? Do you notice you're happier? Do you notice your stomach doesn't hurt anymore? Like, what happens for you? It's a really powerful and fun experiment that I welcome you to try today as you step into the holidays, and most importantly, as you step into the new year. And if you're wanting more support on tapping into this authentic expression that is there inside of you, I welcome you to sign up for the intention setting party. We're hosting 2 of them. One's virtual and one's in person here in Seattle. You can learn more in the show notes. There are a few early bird tickets still available. So if you're interested, get on that, take advantage. And through this process, it's really about you tuning into yourself to set your intentions for the new year, to set what I call a power intention. So this mindset that you get to hold for the next year, and support yourself really taking action and living from this place of alignment, and just notice what magic gets created. Thank you, as always, for listening to today's episode and welcoming me into your heart, mind, and earbuds. I would love to hear from you about what's resonating with this episode, what is coming alive for you as you tune in. What's your truth? Were you like, wait, what were you smoking when you created this episode? Or are you like, yes, oh my God, this speaks to me, or somewhere in between? I would love to hear your truth, so share it with me. You can send me a message on Instagram at OneWade, or linked in the show notes, you can send me an email. I'm wishing you a very happy and healthy holiday season and start to your new year, or whenever you listen to this. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And until next time, stay centered.